KeithAndrewNetWork. The whole point of my talk show is to show you that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities to never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be, so prove them.
Hi guys, I'm Ginger O'Toole. I was just interviewed by Keith Andrew and we had an amazing time. I would definitely recommend checking out this episode, and if he hits you up for an interview, definitely do it.
Don't adjust that dial. That is right. You're watching the KeithAndrewNetWork 995. As you heard from a recommendation, we have a beautiful guest who's on the hit show Madoff, the Monster of Wall Street. You think I'm a talk show host, you think I would get it right? But usually I have it on text to speech. But let's start off as this one, actually. From the Madoff Monster of Wall Street. If I say it again, I probably get it right. Madoff, the Monster of Wall Street. Now, what can you tell us about the experience of being on that show?
It was pretty cool. It started off as a smaller role, and then he added some shoot dates, and it's still technically, it's in between like background and you want to say regular acting. I'm a trained actor, so I like to think it is. And I was lucky enough to play a role that had some meat in it, but working with such a fantastic director was incredible. And working on a Netflix anything is pretty cool in terms of the set and the makeup and the hair. It was very fun.
No, absolutely. And one thing I do want to point out is, for listeners, don't be an ass. I have a disability, and pronouncing things is not one of my strong points. But it's not about me. This is about you. And you were actually on 2 episodes of Madoff, a Monster of Wall Street. Are you a recalling castmate, or are you just like, are you an extra, or will you be back on the show?
Well, it's actually a docu-series, so there's 4 episodes total. They're all, I think they call them limited series. And so I'm in the episode 1 for probably about 25 seconds, but episode 4 I'm in quite a bit of. Episode 4 is about the victims, and I play Ruth, who's a victim. That was his wife.
No, absolutely. And now you are also in a couple other hit shows. You are the CEO in How to Live Your Life. No, it's like How to Live Your Best Death. That's pretty interesting. What can you tell us about that?
I was a supporting role in that film, so I was actually a testimonial video for the lead. So my role, like I said, is a little bit smaller. I'm just kind of up and coming. But again, it was a great experience. It's so fun working on professional sets, and I've trained a lot and worked hard to get here. So it's kind of fun to get to finally see, the fruits of your labor.
No, I agree. It's always good when to stop sabotaging yourself. Sometimes I have to get out of my own way.
100%. I am often in my own way.
What about this one, which sounds really cool? The Mountains Call Me Home. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just saying, it was so fun. That was one of the first films I did in the beginning. It was done by an amazing director, Erica Jolie, and we actually hiked up a mountain for 4 hours to shoot some of the really scenic shots. So if you watch it, it's on YouTube. They're real. Those shots are all real. They're all in the White Mountains in New Hampshire. They shot it with a drone. It was really fun. Great cast. It was, for one of I think it was maybe my second film technically, but it was an amazing experience. And it's a really great film.
Now you actually bring up a good point. And speaking of great film, Gladiator, hands down. I love Russell Crowe. I like Hugh Jackman, so he's really better. I mean, in an alternative reality, Russell Crowe being Wolverine would be pretty interesting, but I like Hugh Jackman more. But the reason I bring that up is you catch kind of mistakes here and there. And sometimes, it's not really a big deal, but you've been on the set. And so I bet you've seen some little mistakes. Some mistakes I want to point out, it's Jurassic Park. where the T-Rex comes out of the pen. You
Hmm.
kind of see the end of the sound stage. The other one's a Gladiator, what I was mentioning before. You see an airplane flying overhead. There's a couple other movies where there's tiny mistakes, but if you're gonna sit there and nitpick these great films and be like, oh, there, I see some a fan guy in a bag. Oh, they should have done a better edited job on that. But the point is, or here's another example: Titanic. You see part of the sound stage, or something stupid.
I believe it.
But it's just it makes it interesting. But do you really, when you go to the movies? This is my last little part I want to say. You go into movies, you want to go be entertained. Doesn't matter if you know how you have a shitty job. You want an hour, 2 hours of being, this is my time. Or you really got to sit there like, I see that background over there. I see that stage guy over there. And he's not really acting that well. It's like, I mean, there are people that do that, but I mean, it's
There
kind of
are.
like,
I mean, personally, I agree with you. When I go to the movies, I just want to be entertained. I want to see great acting, great story. You kind of want to get lost in it. When an actor, in my opinion, is doing a great job, you completely get lost in the story and you forget you're watching actors. And so oftentimes I miss the mistakes. I can't think of any that I saw. Actually, somebody did point one out in the Netflix one. It was, I guess the cigarette was backwards. It wasn't in the scene I was in because I do not smoke, but I had to fake smoke, sort of. Won't give out the secrets too much, but smoke a cigarette, and it wasn't my scene. But there's a lot of smoking because it's set, back when everything happened. I think 50s and 60s that those scenes were, maybe 70s, and I guess one of them was in the ashtray backwards.
I am guilty of that because I worked at retail for a lot of years, and I'm not saying it's one of my brightest moments, yeah, but I got, it's not a compliment or anything, but I got used to the smell of secondhand smoke because the
Yeah,
people
yep.
I worked with smoke. And I'm like, hey, Keith, I'm going to go on a cigarette break. Do you want to take 15? Yeah, I don't smoke or anything. Keith, you don't smoke. Oh, that's okay. He said I can take a 15.
So you guys would take the non-smoke break.
Yes.
Well, it's healthier.
Or I used to say I'm not used to bathroom and staying there for 15 minutes, and I just used to like I don't have to go. I'm just going to sit here and stare at the wall and think, what am I going to do for dinner?
I'm sure your boss was thrilled.
I try to have fun with everyone, but
Yeah,
the
me
other
too.
one I want to ask you, and if I interrupt, I do apologize.
No.
And the one thing I want to ask you is, I'm going to ask you this in a little bit in the show, but you watch, and if I can send you some of these, so you know what I'm talking about. Anytime you eat on the set, do you agree or disagree that it's cold food?
Well, we ate on the set of The Mountains Call Me Home. It started out warm. That's usually, I mean, I don't know if that's always the case, but they try and they would switch the food out quite a bit. But eventually you start running out of food and you don't really eat that much of it because when you talk with food in your mouth, it's just not attractive
Right.
and you can't understand you. And so, you take a tiny bite. And so,
And you bring up that point I was going to say. You look at TV shows like Home Improvement, Boy Meets World, Suits, one of my favorites.
oh my gosh, me too.
Who's your favorite?
Oh, I love Harvey.
Life is here. I like to be here.
He's so funny. But he's like underneath everything, he's a nice guy. That's what I love about him. Because he's such a jerk. He's a guy you love to hate, but you can't. Which is what I love about him.
No, you're absolutely right. And that's a show that inspired me to become an actor. And that leads me to my next question. For people with disabilities who want to follow in your footsteps, we can get back to the food later on. For people who have disabilities who want to follow in your footsteps, what do you recommend acting classes, number one? And number two, what websites would you recommend?
Where do I recommend acting training, you mean? Or just in general?
Well, go back. The first one is, would you recommend taking acting classes? And then,
100%.
and would you recommend any certain websites?
Yeah, I recommend training for everyone because people will watch people on TV and say, "That looks so natural. I could do that." You have no idea how difficult it is to act natural. It's actually quite difficult because you have to learn to use yourself. Then you also have to learn how to read a script, how to interpret a script, movements on camera. There are so many different things, different types of speech. There's a lot involved. And so I 100% recommend classes. I started out at HB, which is in New York City, and it was during the pandemic, so a lot of it I did online. But they're a great school. I would assume that they have accommodations. Everybody there were, especially there was one teacher I loved, Jim Borland. I send everyone to him that asked me because I loved him so much, and so I can't picture anybody having a bad time learning with him. And one of my really good friends actually has autism, and she's going to be an actor director, and I met her at an acting class.
That's how, yeah, it's just, I got lost in your beauty because I'm staring at you.
You're kind.
Yeah, I know I'm a bad part, but I'm staring at you, and I'm like, you can have two looks. You have your long hair, but then if you decide to, cut the back off, it's like you can actually look like, I'm drawing a blank on that show, Big Bang Theory on a penny. You
Oh,
can go for the penny look.
sometimes. And when you check out the Madoff, my hair is short. My hair's finally growing back, but it was about this short and then shorter in the back because it was cut the same as Ruth's hair, so it's very short. But I'm like a chameleon. I think that's one of the benefits of being a blonde is that because my features are so fair. And somebody once said to me, I don't take this the wrong way, but you're kind of like a blank slate. And I'm like, I'm an actor. That is a huge compliment. And it is. I'm lucky. I can play a lot of different things, and you wouldn't necessarily recognize that it's me.
But let's play a fun game real fast. Well, we have some time left before a commercial break. When I look at you, you look similar to Kirsten Dunst from Bring It On. I see you being the best friend. I see you being the girlfriend, the mom. I see you being the school teacher. When you look at me, what are the first couple roles that pop in your head?
Okay, so I'm going to disclose I stink at this, but I have to get better. I would say.
Don't say scientist because I heard that so many times.
Why not? I'm a scientist, technically.
Yeah, it's true.
It's a compliment. I was actually going to say, what was I going to say? Oh, teacher was the first thing that came to my mind. I think most people that have a friendly face could play friend, and I think you do. I don't think scientist is a bad thing, so I'm gonna say scientist. Because you can't tell a nerd that being a nerd is bad. And what else? To me, there's so many different roles.
No, you're absolutely right. Let me ask you this. Are you afraid of being typecast? There's a lot of arguments saying you don't want to be typecast because here's an example. My sister and me were obsessed with Star Trek. So this actor, Data, I'm not going to pronounce his real name because I end up butchering it. But the guy who did Data always plays a scientist. And so he can't get anything else. And God rest his soul, before he committed suicide, Jason David Frank, he was always typecast as the Green Ranger. And then there's other people who I interview who are in the acting world. Like, the word in it is cast. I don't care if it's typecast, as long as you're casting me, and I talk because my hands force a habit, as long as you're being cast, that's all it matters. So are you afraid of being typecast?
Yes and no. I think so. One of my goals for this year soon is to reshoot my headshots, because what I was told was that my headshots could actually typecast me, and I agree, because they said when they look at my headshot, it's not what they hear when I speak, because I'm kind of quirky and interesting in an odd way, in a good way for acting. But they picture, I think, like a cheerleader type person, and that's not me at all. So they said that, and this was from casting directors that were just giving advice, that that would make me more likely to be typecast. But if I'm able to have clips and pictures that show that I can play different roles, and even the roles that I've been cast in are very, very, very different. Sorry, this is my mom. Bless you, mom. Um, I played Ruth Madoff. I played her from a range of ages up to 60. They aged me. I'm not quite sure I got there, but so that's a very different role. I played a mom. I played a cougar-ish, I guess, hitting a much younger man multiple times. I joked that that was one of my typecasts, but that's not what the definition of typecast is.
It's like the expression when you see a beautiful woman. For an example, I'm probably gonna be called an asshole for this, but you look at Trish Stratus. She's almost in her late 50s, completely beautiful. And then and obviously, I'm a big wrestling fan. You look at another woman, it's like, she aged like fine wine. You age like milk.
Well, I guess I'd rather be called the wine. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, and some people have better genes than others, and obviously, if you're in this business, you kind of have to take care of yourself and make sure that you kind of keep up with time.
No, I agree. Now we're gonna take a quick commercial break, but you have to take care of yourself. I know I have a fat neck, but I'm trying to hide it. My dad says, "You want to lose your fat neck? Cut 10 pounds off." But with that being said, we're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to change up the format. Now we're back from the commercial break. If you're watching on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and all social medias, make sure to like, subscribe, especially if you're watching, definitely leave a comment. Now we ask, in the beginning, usually I would ask the easy questions, but we started off with the questions I would ask the second part for the first, so we're only going to switch it now. So the first question I want to ask is, tell our audience a little bit about yourself and about your background.
Well, there goes my microphone. I'm clumsy.
Don't worry, I have an effect on people.
Just me. It makes us interesting. But so is my background. So I started out acting in high school, and I loved it, and never stopped loving it. And I've done a bunch of hosting and this and that, and back and forth with acting. But in the meantime, I went to pharmacy school, graduated with my bachelor's, and worked for quite a while. Then I got my doctorate, and then I decided I was going to act. Just like everyone who finishes college, I went straight back to acting. And so I've been training pretty hardcore in acting for the last few years, and just started working the last year or so because I really wanted some solid training under my belt before I even started auditioning. But that's just a choice that I made. I figured this time I'm going to go for it, because I tried to part-time do, and it didn't work, because I would get an audition and not be able to go because I had to work, and it was just too hard. So I said, all right, I'm going to do it all the way. And so I put a lot of effort in, and so far so good. I'm training with some of the best in the country, and it's pretty amazing.
Well, you bring up a good point. How has the pandemic impacted your acting career? And has this given you time to sit back and refocus your career?
Well, the pandemic for me was ridiculously busy, because I started going back into acting right before the pandemic started, maybe 4 or 5 months. And so I was trying to navigate my dog. I was trying to navigate how I was going to travel. I lived in Connecticut at the time, from Connecticut to New York or wherever I was going to train. And then the pandemic happened, and the pandemic's horrible. I'm not saying by any means it was not. But in terms of acting training, everything went online. All of the huge schools, the conservatories, improv, all the places I had dreamed of training that I couldn't get to are now online. And so I trained from early morning till late at night, because I did East Coast, West Coast. And then I was practicing in between. And so I basically didn't sleep the entire pandemic.
Well, look at especially for schools, look how fast that they took that, uncensored. Look how fast they took that shit down, because they said, okay, kids, you are home, no more snow days. No more, sick days, but still, no more sick days. No place to run, no place to hide. You're on a computer, now we're going to teach you on a computer. A year later, back to school, no more remote learning. And what happened to snow days? No more snow days. Now you have snow days. Make up your freaking minds like the CDC. Come out, wear a mask. Don't wear a mask. Do this. Don't do that. Don't go on TV unless you have all your facts straight. Because if your job is to confuse the hell out of people, hey, miss an accomplice on that. But
it became a little difficult, I think, because unfortunately, we had to start being very careful how and what we said, because I can tell you, from if I put my medical professional hat on, I can tell you that I don't listen to anybody unless it's legitimate medical information from a legitimate journal, a legitimate study, of which we're trained to read. Not everyone can read studies. So unfortunately, information got out that they just had to be careful, and so it started really confusing people, which stinks, because if people listen to people like me who are just speaking on a regular platform on our own, you get a much more straightforward answer.
Not a lot of people can read, so that helps too.
Yeah, but we don't care. We're not swayed by anything, because we just want to help people.
And it's sad that people can't read, and people say, I'm on the spectrum for being retarded, but you look at the people around you making right turns out of left lanes, making U-turns in the middle of a road, and just doing stupid things. And I'm like, I'm the one with a disability, and I can do a better job than most of these people.
Well, I mean, I have a very different look on disability, because I don't think people realize how many people with disabilities have done amazing things in this world, in this country. So I don't look at disability as necessarily a disability. I mean, if you look at the number of people on the spectrum, for instance, I mean, you might know of a few of them. I believe George Lucas is one of them. That small director you might have heard of. And there are so many other people. It is insane. And so it's all these people that have made such a huge difference, because a lot of times it just means thinking differently, and thinking differently, in my opinion, is how we actually come up with the best ideas.
Every time I think about, and not in that way, I don't swing that way, but when I think about George Lucas, and I said, pause, when you talk about George Lucas, the first thing that popped in my head wasn't Star Wars. It was Clerks 2, where he's, Toy Boy Lucas. And they were talking about, go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't even know if I saw Clerks 2.
I would recommend it. It's really,
okay.
Don't see the third one. It's depressing. It's funny, but it's depressing. They should have stopped after the second one. But they're like, this is the first one. Here's the second one. And here's the third one. It's 3 movies. A walk into a freaking volcano. And I
Sure.
keep it PG on that one.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. Gotcha.
and then everyone's like, and oh, there's only one trilogy. And it's like, oh, he's down. He's not down with the Saya. He's down with the Hobbits. And then he says, there's only one trilogy, and that's Return of the King. No, there's only one trilogy, Return of the Jedi. Yeah, well, you and Toy Boy Lucas over there.
Oh my God. Well, I like both of those. I'm a big Star Wars fan. I also love Hobbit. I know Star Trek. Star Trek's cool too, but I have my own lightsaber, so you know. Oh,
That is
and my
true.
dog.
Well, you're wearing black, so are you going to the dark side?
I am not. I just do not have a lot of color in my wardrobe.
You know, it'd be funny if you and your dog do a show. And what's your dog's name, by the way?
This is Elsa.
Hey, Elsa.
She says, "Hello, I'm going to join for a moment."
If you can like hold Elsa up, and you have a blue screen, it can do like a Yoda impression about how the
She
Elsa.
she does do actually on her Instagram, which is at Elsa Chi Dorable, because she's a Chihuahua. Isn't her mom clever? There's actually a picture of her side by side with Baby Yoda. What's his name?
Of a Mandalorian, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I can't think of that. I seen it, but I never saw
Grogu.
it.
Grogu. His name's Grogu. So yeah, there's a picture of her next to Grogu, like this. Look at that. That's Grogu right there.
And do you do the voice? Do that. There is
I
no
need
try.
to. I'm working on it because I actually love voiceover and I love doing character work. So that's kind of a side thing I'm doing.
Well, we can definitely talk about that. What are some of your impressions? I do a lot of fan made parodies. If you're interested in doing something for fun,
I
and
would do
but
them for fun. I'd have to watch them first because I don't know if there's any voices I'm good at just off the cuff.
you know, for me, I can do Yoda. Not in that way, obviously. I imitate Yoda. I like to consider it Ray Romano, but people out there who watch the Venture Brothers. It's like, yeah, just it's number two. I just went to the store today to buy deodorant. I didn't know how to use it. It's so unsanitary. Go buy your own. I can do the Pink Panther a little bit. Except, yeah, it's really bad. I haven't done it in a long time. Exit Steve, what's even? It's 50-50.
Well, it's
When
hard if you haven't heard it recently to do a good job. That's why I'm like, I'm
can you
trying to think
do
of the ones
can you do Yogi Bear?
I can't.
Hi, boo boo. How are you?
Oh, do you have a picnic basket?
So there's certain impressions that I can do perfectly, but in other ones it's kind of like I don't know. Like I said, my biggest problem is I walk around with my emotions on my sleeve and I talk with my hands, so I'm not Italian. But
I used to talk with my hands all the time, and I actually had to stop because of acting. Because I
well,
was doing it on screen too often. And one of my teacher that I love so much, he always says, "How you do one thing is how you do everything." And so I was having too much movement, and so I had to stop doing it in everyday life. That's why I'm not doing it now. But if you saw me a couple of years ago, I also spoke like in Italian with my hands.
yeah, me fura. The reason I go yeah me fura is because I used to work over at a dog training facility, and I was a part-time trainer. And I don't do it deliberately, but I when I walk, I always step my foot out forward. And he's like, "Oh, you're doing really good at the training, but you really need to stop goose stepping." And I was like, "What the hell are you talking about?" I'm like, "Yeah, me feel." It's like, yeah, I better not do that. I end up getting fired, but
Yeah, that would be good.
but there's a lot of other things. But what voices like inspires you? What cartoons inspire you? For me, I like wrestling, but I love Dragon Ball. Son Goku, Son Vegeta. Trying to think off the top of my head, but the first one, you probably think I'm a loser for this one, but if
I just told you I have a lightsaber, okay?
I can top that. When I die, I want to do my life over either two things. Do my life over knowing everything I know now and being a part of the Dragon Ball universe. I know one of those is realistic and everyone wants like he has a lot of problems.
Well, so my dream and where I go when I'm having a bad day in my head is that I live in a Disney castle.
I do have a couple of questions for you off the air, but wrapping up, brutally honest, no cards up your sleeve on my sleeve. When I first approached you to be a guest in my talk show, what's made you say yes? How do you feel now? Would you recommend it?
I went and I watched your videos because I wanted to see what type of interviews you did. What's most important to me is I like someone who's a good interview. I like someone who's having fun. I like someone who asks positive questions and not going to ask super intrusive things that make people feel uncomfortable. Because I'm around people who interview people a lot, and you don't do that. And I think you do a really great job. It actually had nothing to do with disability whatsoever. I just liked your personality. I thought your interviews were great. And so I said, this sounds like a great opportunity. And you seem like a good guy. When I looked at your Facebook, like everyone else does, right? They check everybody out. And I said, yeah, seems like a good guy. I think it'd be fun.
Oh, absolutely.
And would I recommend it? 100%.
And don't worry, this is not like a mask or anything.
You're going to Scooby-Doo me, aren't you?
You can talk off the air. But if you're watching, definitely like and leave a comment. And this is 4 episodes away from our goal of 1,000. Brand new things are coming to the Keith Andrew Network, as you can tell from our format. Until we meet again, catch you later. Thank you and have a good night.